Who's ever lost their job before? Fun, isn't it? It's never an entertaining situation. Now, you may find yourself in a role that, quite frankly, wasn't a match for you, and it was probably the best thing to ever happen. But at the end of the day, if it's not the right job for you, you want to get out of it. Yesterday we talked about my heart attack, and to kind of continue the story, I had 17 weeks to recover after the cardiac event. And then when I went back to work, I was promptly let go. Now, mind you, there were some circumstances and some things that I did while I was employed there that my employer didn't particularly care for. Was it worthy of losing my job? I'm not the right person to ask that question. However, I realized that the job was no longer mine to have. So I want you to put yourself in the mindset of where I was. 17 weeks prior, had a heart attack, nearly lost my life, and then just as I'm starting to get back to normal, I find out that I don't have a job. This was in 2009, and if you recall, that was right during the time of the economic recession in the United States and Canada, where government motors, for example, General Motors and Chrysler were bailed out by the government in order to survive. And there were many, many jobs being lost, the mortgage challenges, and homes were being foreclosed left, right, and center. So it wasn't exactly the best time to be unemployed. And being in the Windsor, Ontario area, which is a sister city to Detroit, you can imagine the number of jobs that were available were not bountiful by any stretch. When you lose your job, you have this opportunity. I know this is going to sound weird, but work with me here. You have this opportunity to reflect on what worked well and what didn't. And I definitely had a lot of time to do that because my job search lasted a long time. And I picked up a lot of ideas and options of what I wanted to do differently. Because whenever you have a change in your life, such as a job loss, you have this opportunity and you should take it to really look and see what did you do well, what didn't you do well, what do you need to work on in order to learn from this experience. Because I had skin in the game, and I lost that job. I was to blame for that. I was responsible for that. So whenever something like this happens, yes, it's natural to be upset or potentially excited because you hated that job and you got out of it. It was the best thing that ever happened to me to lose that role because it was a big component to my heart attack. The way that I was going about the job, being so driven and not taking care of myself. I didn't establish any boundaries when I was working there. I was checking emails from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, including weekends, because I was getting emails at 6 a.m. in the morning and 11 p.m. at night. So when you are working and you're in your job, you need to take a long, hard look as to how you're doing your job and what you're doing at your job. And do you leave your job at home? Or is your job your shadow? Is it constantly following you? Now, if you work from home, obviously it could be a problem because your home and your job is the same place. But you need to establish boundaries around your job and your work ethic. To the point where I actually worked remotely for a few months in that job that I was let go at. And to the point of making sure that I tried to establish boundaries, and I wish I would have stuck with them because I didn't last long. I would literally leave for work. I would go out the back door of my house, and then I'd open up the front door of my house and start working. And then when I finished my work day, I would do the reverse. I did that for about 3 or 4 days, and I thought, this is corny. I'm not going to do it anymore. I probably should have kept doing that because it provides a clear beginning and end to your workday. And for entrepreneurs and people that work from home and even the people that actually go to the office. When you go into the office and you get in that door, start working. When you leave, leave. We're not robots, we're not machines. I wish somebody would have told me this years ago. Would have made a gigantic difference, and quite frankly, I probably wouldn't be doing a Facebook Live talking about having a heart attack and losing a job. So if you are like me and you've lost a job before, in the comments below, talk about the emotions that you felt. They could have been happy, sad. Maybe you're still dealing with a job loss and you're trying to work your way through some of those things. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about them. And more importantly, are you taking the time to learn and reflect from the things that went well? And if there's some areas that you want to change, we can take a look at that too. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the job search world. Obviously, after you lose your job, unless you're able to not work because you have boatloads of money, you have to find another job to provide income. So I had an interesting job search, and I will talk about a little bit more tomorrow. The spoiler is I'm calling it the Buffalo Bills of job search, and I'll explain more on that tomorrow. Until then, cheers.